comic strip of a man who is stranded on a deserted island. And finally, a ship is coming to rescue him. The sailor who leads the rescue effort, comes ashore and hands the man, of all things, a newspaper. "What's this for?" the man asks. "Compliments of the captain," the sailor says. "He wants you to read the headlines and decide whether you'd still like to be rescued or not." It's a lighthearted comic strip, like any good comic strip, but it also gets at a deeper truth. It's been well documented. I know I'm not the only one that can only read a certain amount of news headlines before I have to put them aside, before I lose all hope in humanity, as they say. And maybe that's a little dramatic. But maybe it's not so far off. Because we live in a world that is full of bad times, bad events, bad things done by people with bad intentions. And if you read too many of the headlines, you can get too absorbed in this world of bad and get pretty sad really quick. And it's one thing for bad things to happen over there to people out there. We sympathize with them for a little bit, but then eventually we kind of have to put it out of our mind and go back to our regular lives, go back to looking for filling our lives with as many good headlines as we can. But it's a whole other thing entirely when bad starts to happen to us. When you get into a rut for one reason or another. When something unexpected happens in your life that completely throws off your day-to-day for the near future. When the diagnosis comes back and it's the opposite of good. Or maybe worst of all, when something terrible that you have done spirals and gets worse and worse and brings more and more bad and evil into your life. Our worship series for this Easter season, which is this Sunday and the following 6 Sundays, is entitled Difference Maker. And it's an appropriate title for an Easter series because it names something true about us. We know that we live in a world full of bad. And so we want to push back against that bad. We want to do our part to leave the world a better place than we found it. And many of us do exactly that. Some of us even do it in our careers. We become teachers to help the young. We become nurses to help the sick. We become therapists to help the distressed. We donate our time and our resources to causes that will make a difference for the good. But at some point, and I suppose maybe it's just a part of growing up, we realize that we won't make this giant difference in the world. We realize that we're finite people. And the difference that we can make, whatever it is finite. No matter how hard we work, no matter how much effort we put in, the bad headlines of the world will continue to come and swallow up whatever good headlines we try to replace them with. No matter how hard we try, we cannot fix the core problem of our world. And so that cartoon, the comic strip, will always ring at least a little bit, maybe a lot of it true. That, man, wouldn't it be a little bit nicer to live away from all of the bad of the world instead of working tirelessly against it to no or marginal gain? And maybe you're thinking, wow, that went from lighthearted to depressing really quickly. I mean, there's plenty of good to live for in our world. There's all kinds of good things that we can do and good things that can come our way. And you're exactly right. Today, as we study the Easter Gospel, we're going to see how Easter is the foundation for all of that good. Without Easter, there would be no reason to make a difference in the world. As we study the Gospel reading today, we will see that we are able to make an incredible difference in the world because Jesus has first made all the difference for us. So let's go to the reading. We begin our reading, we're following 2 Marys to the tomb. These Marys have just endured the worst headline of their lives. See, they've been following Jesus for the better part of the last 3 years, and they had ended up putting all their hopes into this man because Jesus was a religious teacher. He was a Jewish rabbi, but he was a teacher unlike anyone they had ever heard. When he spoke with authority. People would come by the thousands from miles away to come to listen to him, but he wasn't some pompous preacher. He was as down to earth as they come. Every person he came into contact with, no matter who they were, no matter what their status was, he treated with empathy and respect and love. But best of all, Jesus claimed to be the Messiah. He claimed to be the chosen one, the one that prophets had been talking about for hundreds, actually thousands of years. Prophets had been saying that someone is going to come into the world to set all that is wrong and bad in the world right again. And Jesus claimed to be that man. He claimed to be God himself in human flesh. And he did the miracles to back it up. Clearly, God was with him. And so the Marys put all of their hope in Jesus. They put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak, as did many others. And that's why this headline hurts so much. The headline of Good Friday, that Jesus is dead. And not just that Jesus had died, he had been crucified, which was the worst possible way to go. And not only had he been crucified, he had been mocked and beaten and whipped and embarrassed and completely publicly shamed. This man that they had put their whole lives in, this man that they had made the headline of their life, that they were building their story around, he had become a public laughingstock. And maybe you know a little bit of the feeling of what the Marys were going through that morning. Maybe you know the feeling of what it's like to put your hope in something or someone only to have it or them fail you. I'm not talking about when your sports team has a good season but then loses in the championship game. I'm not talking about when you put your hope in your new workout plan and it peters out after the first few months. I'm talking about things that you build your whole story on. You completely put your hope for the future in. Maybe for some of you, it's your career that you love so much it feels more like a calling. Maybe for some of you, it's a hobby that you love and enjoy doing so much and it brings much good into the world. I think maybe for most of us, it's a person or a group of people. Maybe it's a friend or a family member or your whole family who gives you a sense of worth, a sense of value, a sense of purpose in your life. When whatever or whoever it is for you ends or passes away, it's a terrible feeling. It's like a headline that was written just for you and a headline that you never wanted to read. It can leave you feeling hopeless, without direction in your life, like you're going in circles with no clear path forward. There's a name for that feeling, that situation. It's called grief. Grief is an inescapable part of our lives. Because our lives are such that whatever worldly thing we put our hope in this world, it will come to an end. And so we will grieve. It's as universal a part of our lives as any. The saying, the only two certain things are life are death and taxes, is a little bit funny because it's comparing taxes to death. We inherently know that death comes for everyone, including you. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's actually good, because it means you have a pulse. It means you're human. You should be uncomfortable with that, because humans were never intended to die in the first place. And so people for years and years, as long as humans have been around, have been trying to grapple with this reality that everything comes to an end and everything dies. The Greek Stoics, back in the day, they said that death is inevitable, so you just can't let it get to you. More recently, philosophers have said that death and ending actually gives meaning to all the limited, the finite things of life. Because things only last for fleeting moments, that gives them value during these fleeting moments. If these philosophers were to give you a headline that they would want you to build your whole story on, it would probably be something like that, that death will come, so enjoy it while it lasts. And frankly, that's pretty good advice. It reminds us that we can make a difference in this world. We can do things that matter, have a life that matters, even if it is finite. But it doesn't ultimately fix our problem, does it? It's a way of viewing death and not a way of defeating death. It leaves us still uncomfortable. It still gives death the final word in everyone's life. What if there's a better headline? What if there's a better headline that doesn't just give you a way to cope with death, but actually attacks death at the root? What if there's a headline that made you live a life that you are so excited about that if you were on that deserted island, you wouldn't even think for a second about staying. You'd be like, yep, let me get back to my life, back to my relationships, back to the world. Yes, it's broken. Yes, things may have bad in them, problems with them. But my goodness, I can make such a difference that lasts. That's the headline that the Marys heard on Easter morning. They had gone to the tomb fully grieving. They had gone to the tomb newly hopeless. They had gone to the tomb wondering why they'd been so foolish to put all of their hope in this one man. Of course he would die. Everything dies. All good things come to an end. And then an angel shows up. The angel comes down from heaven and he gives the Marys a headline that would flip their whole lives on their heads. He says, I know you're looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen. The Marys' minds must have been blown. Could they even imagine it? Could they even comprehend it? I mean, this was opposite of how their whole world worked. So the angel goes on, no, this is just as he said. Remember, he promised, just like he promised that he would love and care for you, just like he promised that he was God in the flesh, he promised that he would rise again on the third day. You just got to connect the dots a little bit. Maybe the Marys still didn't comprehend because the angel says, look, come and see the place where he lay. And so they went, and they saw, and sure enough, no body. And the burial clothes were neatly folded and placed at the end of the bed. This was no hasty grave robbery. But what had happened? Where was Jesus? Were their senses deceiving them? In the end, the angel almost has to grab them by the shoulders and shake them. Now I have told you. And so the Marys run off, completely overwhelmed with all kinds of emotions. Can you even imagine? Until his voice cuts through. Greetings, he says. And how fun this must have been for Jesus, to flip their whole world upside down, to flip the whole world's world upside down with just a casual greeting. But that's what he did. And the Marys responded in the only way they could. They fell down and they worshiped him because he had proven that what he said about himself was true. He had proven himself to be God in the flesh. He had proven that he had defeated death. The Marys felt his feet. Here he was, flesh and blood. He wasn't some ghost or some spirit or some image, apparition that came back. It was soul and body, Jesus, alive again. It seemed too good to be true. But there he was. Sometimes it seems too good to be true for us as well. Because death still reigns for the time being in our world. Endings still happen, especially when we don't want them to. It seems too good to be true. It seems like this is some feel-good story or maybe an effective coping mechanism. This has to be something other than what it purports to be, which is a historical account of God defeating death. And yet there Jesus stands. And all the historical evidence, which we'll get into a little bit more next week, points in the same direction. That Jesus came, lived as a man on the earth, died on the cross, and then rose again. And because he lives, you too will live. Because he lives, you can have life beyond death. Because he lives, life beyond death is not the only important thing. Your life now has been rejuvenated with all kinds of new hope, just like the Marys. And what joy that gives you. Because while philosophers might give you good advice at how to deal with the reality of death in your world, We know ultimately that advice is unsatisfactory. We know that because we're human. And we know deep down we were created for more than a world that only ends in death. The book of Ecclesiastes puts it this way: God has put eternity on the hearts of mankind. We know that we were meant for more, and we were. See, God never intended for humans to die in the first place. He never intended this to be a world full of bad and of endings. When he created humans first, he created us perfect and eternal. Death came in afterward. Death is not a natural part of this world. Death is not a natural part of the circle of life. Death came into the world and tarnished it, almost beyond recognition, almost. Because on the same day that the devil and humans brought sin and death and evil into the world, God made a promise. He made a prophecy, actually. It's the first prophecy of the Messiah. He said that he would send someone into the world, someone descended from Eve, who would crush death forever. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He came into this world, he fulfilled each one of those prophecies to a T, and he crushed death forever. And because you believe this, you too will live forever. He has given you a life that is not just trying to make the best of things until you eventually die. He has given you a life with unending ability to make a difference, because he has first made all the difference for you. There's an author named C.S. Lewis. Maybe you've heard of him from the Chronicles of Narnia. But what maybe is most remarkable about Lewis is that he grew up as a Christian, became an atheist as a teenager, and then God brought him back in his 30s. And he went on to become maybe the most influential Christian author of the 20th century. C.S. Lewis understood the difference that you living as an eternal person makes for your ability to make a difference in this life. He wrote, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life to ours is as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit, immortal horrors or everlasting splendors." The people in this room today will exist beyond the date that gets chiseled into our gravestones. The people you see in the restaurant that you might go to later today also are immortal. The people that you pass by on the sidewalks in the city, or really the whole world, will live forever. And so the way that you treat these people makes an eternal difference. The love that you show to people makes an eternal difference. The thing you do at your job, whether you work directly with people or whether you work with products that serve people, makes an eternal difference. The things you do in your free time that bring enjoyment to other people make an eternal difference. The time you spend with people, each second of it, laughing with people, crying with people, all of it makes an eternal difference. Why? Because you and they will live forever. So friends, this morning, you've been given a new headline. You've been given a headline that makes all the difference in the way you view every moment of every day. You've been given a headline not because you've taken good advice, not because you've accomplished something great for the world, but because Jesus has already done everything for you. He has made the difference for you. He has given you a headline that will never fail you. He has given you a headline that will never end. His headline takes up the whole front page of the newspaper of your life. It's in big, bold letters, and it says this: Christ is risen. Amen.